Hello, and welcome again to another English class while we are here in quarantine. I hope everybody had a nice weekend. Okay, I hope you're all doing well. Um, and I hope you're all studying your English and everything else that you need to study. Okay, so let's continue with our English class today. All right, now today we're going to be doing writing. Okay. So we're gonna be writing a story. So I'm just going to show you some useful things you can do when writing a story. Now, it is important because it is one of the tasks that you will have either in the PET exam or the first certificate exam. Okay, and even if not, it's always good practice as well. Okay, because telling stories is what we do every day with our friends anyway. Okay, so it's a good skill to know. All right. If you can tell the story well, people will be interested. Okay. Anyway, so let's start the class. All right. So today we're going to go to page 56 in the pupil's book. Okay. Page 56 in a pupil's book. So just a little warm up. Okay. Some things to think about. Does anybody skateboard? Or do you know anybody who skateboards? If you do, then you probably know it can be quite dangerous, especially if you're a fully grown adult. For kids, it's not too bad. So just a couple of questions about skateboarding. What types of injuries can happen if you fall off a bike or a skateboard? What injuries can happen? Well, I think if you fall off a skateboard, you could break your arm or your leg or your ankle. You could hit your head. You could twist your knee. You could dislocate your shoulder. Many different injuries. And have you ever hurt yourself while doing sport or playing? I'm sure those of you that do sports have hurt yourself during at some point doing sport. If you play football, it's very common to twist your ankle, or maybe if you play tennis, you get a pain in your elbow. You get something called tennis elbow. Myself personally, I injured my knee one time while I was rollerblading. I was in a skate park like this, and I fell, and my knee bent sideways like this, and I tore my ligaments. And it was very painful. I've also broken my arm while I was snowboarding one year. So yeah, that wasn't as painful, but still very annoying. So, have you ever hurt yourself while playing sport? Something to think about. Anyway, let's crack on. So, first we are going to look at an example story, okay, called The Jump. All right, so I'm going to read it, okay, and well, you can read it, but I'm going to read it out and you can listen, all right? The Jump. Danny knew it was dangerous, but he was good at skateboarding and liked taking risks. Alex was standing at the bottom of the steps. Mel was filming on her phone. It's 7 steps, Danny thought. I can do this. He set off. Suddenly, he was flying through the air. Danny shouted, I've done it, when he hit the ground. But then things went wrong. The skateboard went left, and he fell to the right. Danny wasn't moving, and his eyes were shut. Alex was very worried. Danny, are you okay? He asked. Call an ambulance, shouted Mel. No, said Danny, opening his eyes. I'm fine. Just tell me you filmed it. Okay, good. So, short story, okay? Now, if you notice, it's divided up into 4 paragraphs. Okay, so we're going to try and stick to this formula. Could you understand all of the story? I'm sure you could. So we have a few things we need to do here. First, we need to underline all the verbs in past simple. So let's take our highlighter and let's have a look. Danny knew it was dangerous. There's probably a lot of verbs in past simple. He was good at skateboarding and liked taking risks. Oh, sorry. Oh my God. 1 second, guys. Okay, so Alex was standing at the bottom of the step. Actually, I'm not going to highlight that one. That's past continuous. Then he thought. Danny shouted. And he hit the ground. Things went wrong. The skateboard went left, and he fell to the right. His eyes were shut. Alex was very worried. He asked, shouted, and the last one, you filmed it. Okay, so if you've noticed, most of the story uses past simple. Okay, so that's one thing to take into account. Let's look at our next question. How many verbs are in past continuous? For each one, discuss why it's past continuous and not simple. Okay, so past continuous is was or were, and the verb with ing. Okay, so one example of that would be here. Okay, can I change the color of this? No, I can't. Okay, well, so here we go. So here's one sentence in past continuous. Alex was standing at the bottom of the steps. Mel was filming on her phone. And here he was flying through the air. Danny wasn't moving. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Why are these verbs in past continuous? Why is this in past continuous? Well, the reason is because when we tell a story, the main events of the story, we tell in past simple. But things that are happening at the same time, we say it in past continuous. Okay, and we do this to give the reader an idea of the situation. Okay, so not just the main things that happened, but what else was happening at the same time? Who was there? What were they doing? Okay, so all of the verbs you see in past continuous are describing things that were happening at a certain time. Okay, but not the main events of the story. Okay, but things that were happening at the same time. Let's have a look at the next question. Find examples of the present simple. How many of them are in direct speech? Okay, well, let's have a look. Present simple. I'm not gonna highlight them because otherwise it's too many highlights. Okay, but we can have a look. All right. So if we look at the direct speech, okay, most of it is in present simple. It's 7 steps. I can do this. Okay, this one's in present perfect because he's just finished the action. I've done it. Okay. And then here, all right, again, report direct speech. I'm fine. Just tell me you filmed it. Okay. Now, so when we're telling a story, okay, it's always good to put some direct speech in there to say what people said. All right. And when we do this, we normally do it in present simple because it's sort of like at the time of the story, right? So when we use direct speech, normally it's present simple, or we can use imperative as well, right? So like here, call an ambulance. Okay. Call an ambulance. And it said, just tell me you filmed it. Okay. So imperative, when you're just telling somebody to do something. Okay. So when you write your story, you can use direct speech and use it with imperative or with present simple. Okay. As it's at the actual time of the story. Good. All right. So these are just some, this is some examples of sort of the grammar that we use when telling a story. All right. Let's have a look here what it says here. The main narrative tense in the story is past simple. You can use past continuous for background information or action taking place when another action happened. Be careful with tenses in direct and reported speech. Okay. Well, let's have a closer look. So what we can do is we can open our notebook. Okay, so we'll open the notebooks and we'll put the title, Writing a Story. All right, and the date is Tuesday the 31st of March. All right. Okay, so so in our notebooks, we're going to copy this down. Okay, writing a story, Tuesday 31st of March. Okay, now to tell a story, we use past simple to talk about the main events. Okay, so the main things of the story are all in past simple. Most of the verbs in a story are in past simple. Okay, I'll give you an example, right? So this is just the main actions. I went to school and saw my friend. My friend told me he wanted to talk to his teacher, but the teacher was very angry. All right, all in past simple, right? But it's very straightforward. There's no details or anything. It's just the main points of the story. Okay, so you can copy this down in your book. Okay, now we use past continuous to talk about things that are happening at that time. Okay, so maybe not the main things of the story, but things that are happening at the same time. Okay, again, it's to give the reader an idea of the situation. Okay, so he can put himself in your place. Okay, when you're telling the story. All right. Here is an example. Okay, so I've added a few phrases to my first couple of sentences. Okay, I went to school and saw my friend John. He was talking to some girls. Right? He told me he wanted to talk to his teacher, but the teacher was very angry because all the children were shouting. Okay, so all right, I've said the main things in past simple, but I've said other things happening at the same time. Okay, in past continuous. And now when I read it, I have an idea of the situation. Okay, I know I can picture my friend John talking to some girls. I can see the teacher angry and all the children shouting. So yeah. So yes, you can copy this in your notebook, and remember to highlight the verbs correctly. Okay, I've used red for past simple and green for past continuous. All right. Now, the next thing is that we can use present simple and the imperative in direct speech. All right. Again, using some direct speech in the story just makes it more interesting. Okay. And it gives the reader the sense that they're actually there. All right. So here are some examples, right? So I can say, I need to talk to the teacher, said John. All right. So that's just using present simple because that's at the time it was happening. Okay. And then stop shouting, said the teacher. All right. So that's using the imperative. Okay. But for a similar reason. Okay. Because it's at the time of the story. Okay. So we use present simple and imperative. Okay. For direct speech in our story. All right. So copy this down in your notebook. Okay. Pause the video if you need some time. Okay, very good. Let's go back to our pupils book. Now, we can now do this exercise. All right. So this is a story. All right. And we have to complete it, right? Putting the verbs in the correct form. Okay. So have a look and see if it's past simple or if it's past continuous. Okay. And then if there's some direct speech, okay, you have to think if it's imperative, present simple. Okay. So let's do the exercise. Okay, now you can pause the video and have a go on your own. Okay, try and do the exercise on your own. Okay, finished? Let's go through it together. All right, so the human pyramid. Toby didn't want to do it, but he had no choice. It's past simple. 4 of his classmates were kneeling on the ground. Kneeling, if you don't know, is when it's not sitting down. It's like sitting down, but on your knees. Yeah, sitting on your knees. All right, so this is happening at the same time. 4 of his classmates were kneeling on the ground. 3 others were on top of them. 2 more then climbed on them. All right, again, back to past simple. Toby had to be at the top of the human pyramid. Okay. Now we have some direct speech. I really don't like this. All right, so present simple. He thought. All right. He didn't want to break his arm. Okay, so we're back to past simple. He started to climb. Okay, good. Did you get all of the answers? Of course you did. 100%. Fantastic. Okay, so again, if you notice, a lot of it's in past simple. There's just one that's in past continuous, okay, because it's something that was happening at the same time. And then one bit of direct speech that we use in present simple, okay? So good. Make sure you have all of the correct answers, all right? Excellent. Now, when you start writing your story, okay, it's always a good idea to plan, all right? You should never start writing a story without knowing the main events of the story, right? Without knowing the plot, we call it, all right? So you at least have to know what the plot of the story is before you start writing, okay? You can't just, if you make it up as you go along, it's not going to be well written, okay? So it's always better to plan. Now, in the exam, it will give you the first sentence of the story, and you must use this sentence. Okay, but you can also think about this sentence, and then you can use that to help you plan your story. All right. So here, right, it says, for example, the first sentence is Danny knew it was dangerous. So then you can think, who is Danny? Where is he? What is he going to do? Why is it dangerous? Does he do it? Does he have an accident? What happens? Okay. So you can ask yourself all these questions. All right. So always good idea to plan. So let's try and do a writing, okay? So this is your task. This is what you have to do, all right? Okay, and it's going to be about 100 words, all right? So your English teacher has asked you to write a story. It must begin with this sentence, okay? Rebecca knew it was difficult, but she wanted to try, okay? So you can think, who is Rebecca? Where is she? What is she going to try? Who's with her? Does she try it? What happens in the end? Okay? So what I would like you to do is think about these things and start to make some notes. Okay, so start to think about a story. All right, so for example, right, I'll do an example. Who is Rebecca? All right, I'll just say a teacher in a school. So she's a teacher. Where is she? She's at school. Okay, for example. What does she want to try? I don't know. She wants to organize a football match with the students. Okay, I'm just ideas from the top of my head. All right, you do your own ideas. Okay, I'm just sort of doing it myself like an example. All right, but you use your own ideas. All right, don't copy me. Who is with her? Who is with her? What are they doing? She's with students, and you can say they are arguing, and they're arguing with each other. Okay, does she try to do it? Okay, so so for me, if I'm thinking of my story, it's like she tries to organize the match. What happens? The students don't want to play, and they get. All right. So Okay, so you can use this plan, all right, and you can help you sort of give an outline to your story, all right? So I've just done examples from the top of my head, but I want you to use your examples, okay? Who is Rebecca, right? So for me, in my story, Rebecca's a teacher. She's at school, and she wants to organize a football match with the students, okay? She's there with the students. They're all arguing. She tries to organize the match, but in the end, the students don't want to play and they get angry. Okay, it's not a very happy ending, but all right, it's just an example, right? So you do the same thing, but use your own ideas. Okay, so you can get so you can start to get a sort of the base of a story. Okay, so you can finish that. Now pause the video if you need time. Okay, all finished. All right, so you got a little plan. Good. All right. So now we have sort of like the base of a story. Now we can plan in a bit more detail. Okay, so let's go down to exercise 5 here. All right. So now what you can do here is, so now you can plan your story in more detail. All right. Now it's going to be 4 paragraphs. Now they only have to be short paragraphs. If we look back at the example, all right, there's a couple of paragraphs that only have 1 or 2 sentences in there. Okay, so it doesn't have to be that each paragraph doesn't have to be really long. Okay, but you should plan what you're going to do in the paragraph. Okay, now in the back of your book you should have a writing reference. Okay, now it's a good idea to use this writing reference because what it does, it gives you another example. Okay, and it just tells you, it just points out bits of language that we've used and why. Okay, so okay, looking at the first sentence here, right? You can't change it. All right, don't start writing until you've worked out the plot. Okay. And you can use direct speech when it's appropriate. Okay. Use adverbs. Okay. Use the appropriate tenses: past simple, past continuous. All right. And things like if you have a conversation, direct speech, start each speaker on a new line. Okay, so just little tips like this. So you can look at this while you're writing your story. Now, the interesting part in the writing reference is here, okay, because it has useful phrases. Now, I want you to use these phrases in your story, okay? All right, use these phrases. So, time expressions, all right? Soon afterwards, sometime later, then eventually, finally, okay? So you can order the events of your story. First, this happened. Afterwards, this happened. Finally, this happened. To create some drama in your story, okay, you can use some of these expressions. Suddenly, something went wrong. Or at that moment, or without warning. So when an unexpected thing happens, okay, dramatically in the story, you can use phrases like this. If you're using direct speech or even indirect speech, okay, reported speech, you don't always have to say the same reporting verb. You don't have to always say said, okay? Make it a bit more interesting, okay? You can say asked, cried, lied, promise, screamed, shouted, okay? So instead of just, if we have a look here, I promise I won't let you down, said Greg, right? But instead of saying said Greg, we could say, I promise I won't let you down, screamed Greg, right? So you can use different reporting verbs, okay, when you're using speech. And then in your conclusion, okay, you can use these phrases: in the end and when it was all over. So what you can do is, what I would suggest is, so follow the instructions here and make like a short plan. So basically answering the questions that it's saying, okay? Start with the sentence they've given you, set the scene, okay? So who else is there and what are they doing? All right, so you're there with Rebecca, okay? I'll hide this now, okay? So again, we're talking about Rebecca, but who else was there? Her friends, her colleagues, her parents, her family, right? And then what I would suggest in the part where it says my notes, okay, maybe put some phrases that you like to use, okay? Some phrases that you like to use, okay? Or maybe a sentence, okay? So maybe you can look at some expressions here, all right, in the writing reference and think if you want to use anything. Similarly, if you want to use any direct speech, all right, you can you can make a note of it here about what the person says, okay, and then you can fit it into your story like that. But just go down the plan, okay, and then just answer the questions, okay, and to help you plan. So, right, paragraph 2, describe the beginning of the attempt. How is Rebecca feeling? Okay. Paragraph 3, the end of the attempt, whatever she tried to do, okay, whatever the main event is. All right, was it successful? And then finally, describe what happened at the end. What was the final result? Who was there? What did they say? How did they feel? Okay. And again, right, use the part that says my notes to write maybe phrases or little short phrases or words that you'd like to use in the story. Okay. Good. And so once you've done your plan, okay, then you can start writing. Okay. And you can write it in your notebook. So once again, I'll remind you of the task, okay? Your story must start with this sentence and you cannot change it, okay? Rebecca knew it was difficult, but she wanted to try. And make sure you think of a good title as well. This is not the title, this is the first sentence. So think of a title. When you've finished your piece of writing, okay, and you've checked it, go down this list and make sure you've done these things, all right? And you can tick them off. I've started with the sentence I was given. Have you done that? Have you written 4 paragraphs? Have you used different tenses? Past simple, past continuous, present perfect. Past perfect or present simple. Have you included some direct speech? Have you checked spelling, grammar, and punctuation? Okay. So once you've done your writing, you go down this checklist and make sure you've done all of these things. All right. So that you give the best piece of writing possible. All right. So good. So I will leave you to do this writing. Okay. Remember to use the writing reference in the back of your book. All right. In fact, I'll have a look, see if we can find it here now. Okay. So here it is. And I'll tell you the exact page. It looks like page 169. Okay. All right. So yeah. Is our writing reference. So it should be on page 172, the one for a story. Okay. So yes, use this, read this. Okay. And definitely use some of these phrases here. Okay. They're there for you to use. Now, you don't have to use all of them. What I would suggest is take a couple, okay, which you can remember, right? You can remember a couple of phrases, okay, and you can use them in the future as well, okay? So have a couple of choice expressions that you like, okay, and you can use them in your story that you do now, and you can remember them for the future, okay? But use the writing reference, all right? Very good. And remember, it's about 100 words. Okay, it's about 100 words. So let's go back. Okay. So that is your task. That is what you have to do. All right. So I look forward to reading all of your stories. Okay. So when you write your story, okay, you can take a picture of it and send it to the email address, which you all know, or the WhatsApp. But what I would suggest, what I would prefer, is if you typed up the story, okay, and just sent it by email as an attachment, or even just as the email. Okay, so that way I can read it and I can correct it on the computer, and possibly send it back to you. Okay. If you write in your notebook and it's and you take a picture, I can't correct things on the actual paper. Okay, I have to sort of just explain. So it is easier if you type it on the computer and email it to us. All right, but write in your notebook as well. Okay, because it's good to have these. Then you have everything clear in your notebook. All right. So that's it for today. Okay, I look forward to reading all of your stories. Okay, it's only 100 words. It shouldn't take long. Remember to plan. Use the correct grammar, all right, and use the expressions in the writing reference, okay? And then go down the checklist at the end, all right, and everything should be fine, okay? So that's it for today. I hope you all have a lovely evening, and I will see you all on Thursday. Bye-bye.